So you're an online coach or agency owner stuck making 10 to 20K per month, doing everything yourself, working over 80 hours per week. And on top of that, you're also struggling with inconsistent lead flow. You're the CEO, head of delivery, the sales manager, and the marketing team all in one. And it's basically keeping you trapped at your current income level. Listen, I was in the exact same position as you until I implemented a system that allowed me to remove myself from 90% of the business, stabilize my lead generation, which in turn has allowed me to scale to over $100,000 per month whilst maintaining over 60% profit margins, all whilst working under 20 hours per week. So in this video, I will walk you through the exact 3-part system I've used to remove myself from most of my business in 180 days without losing control, so you can copy me. So with that said, let's dive straight in. And before I actually get into this 3-part system, I am going to talk about why most delegation attempts by entrepreneurs making 10 to 20K per month absolutely fail. So most of you guys fail to delegate because the foundations of your business are absolutely terrible. And the foundations in an online business where you're selling some services are the offer and the ideal customer. Your offer, in most cases, I've seen the offer isn't clear, and then you guys haven't even defined your ideal customer. And since you don't have a clear offer and clarity on your customer and who you're targeting, you basically can't get consistent leads because you don't know who to target, and then you don't know exactly what you're selling. You're hiring and you're delegating this broken system. And look, I understand. Back in 2023, I did found a recruitment company with a co-founder, and both of us were working 80-hour weeks, and we were barely making 3K USD per month, right? And the truth is, we never defined who our ideal customer was, who the exact client we were trying to target. We also didn't even have like a clear value proposition or a clear offer that we had to offer them that was separate from the rest of the marketplace, right? I remember there's this time where we were spending like 100 to 150 messages a day. We're sending out messages and emails a day. And for like a month, we struggled to get a client. And we thought, okay, some interns as well, part-time interns, thinking we delegate outreach to them and then we would, start getting clients. But the truth is it didn't work because the offer wasn't clear. And then we never defined the ideal customer. And it just makes complete sense that if you have clarity on exactly who you're targeting and then you have clarity on exactly what you're selling to them, everything becomes much easier. So the key learning for you is even before you think of hiring and delegating, you need to nail down the offer, exactly what you're selling, and you need to nail down the ideal customer before you even think of delegating and hiring. So another reason why I've seen entrepreneurs fail to delegate is because they haven't nailed the ideal customer. So what I mean by the ideal customer is basically exactly who you're targeting, what their gender is, where they live, what their income level is, what their pain points are. If you haven't got that nailed down on a one-pager, you will really struggle to target and attract them. And this is so important because once you can nail the customer, that's when you can nail the marketing. And once you nail the marketing, you solve the lead for problem, which is what most of you guys are struggling with right now. As soon as I nailed down my ICP, my ideal customer in my first business, and I nailed it down to the point where I was very sure that I was targeting international students who were looking for UK jobs that paid over 30K and they had urgency and they wanted jobs in the next 90 days. As soon as I nailed that down to a T, I hit 10K per month in literally less than a month, right? And it sounds very, very cliche, but it's so true that once you're super clear on who you're targeting, that everything will explode in your business. Basically, my offer was literally, as I said, I help international students land 30K plus graduate jobs in under 90 days and you only pay if you get hired. So I also offered them a guarantee as well on top of a clear offer. And then I went from 0 to 10K followers in 6 months. And then 6 months after that, I went from 10K to 25K followers. And then a year after that, I've gone from 25K followers to 84K followers just because I nailed down my ideal customer. It is so, so important. Once you do that, everything in your business will be much easier. So if you're not getting leads consistently, or if you're not getting high quality or qualified leads, very high chances are that you haven't defined your ideal customer. Or if you have defined your ideal customer, then it's probably because you're not marketing enough. And I'll get to that toward the later part of this video. Even if you think you've defined your customer, it's worth defining your customer really to the T, what their pain points are, what their desires are, and what their target outcome is on a one-pager, because that's 80% of the work. And everything after that becomes easy because just the exercise of doing that will get you to start thinking, oh, I can make content on this, or I can make freebies or cheat sheets on this. And that's how you really then target the right people. And marketing just becomes so much easier from there. Okay, so let's assume you're one of those few people who have their offer nailed down and also their ideal customer nailed down as well. You need to understand that having the offer and the ideal customer is not enough to delegate. You also need to be very clear on what you're hiring for, exactly what you're delegating. Before hiring, I have this rule in my company where we have to have an exact playbook on exactly what tasks they're going to get in the first 30 days. So we need to know exactly what they're doing before they're even in the job. It needs to be crystal clear. And you need to understand that, like, especially if you're a 10 to 20K a month entrepreneur, there's something working. You do have some offer and you do have some customers that like your offer and you're making money, right? Now you just have to systemize it. System is a fancy word you hear all the time. A system is basically a repeatable process that allows you to achieve a certain outcome with predictability, right? And the truth is, if you're stuck at 10 to 20K per month, you can't afford to hire system builders. At this point right now, I've hired people who build systems, but I've been in business for 5 years now. If you're just starting off and you've been in business for a year, 2 years, or you just started hitting 10, 20K months, you're not going to be able to afford people who build systems. That's just the truth. You're going to have to hire people who aren't that expensive and then plug them into systems that you have built already. There's no shame in hiring people without having systems. I made that mistake. When I hired my first coach at the start of 2024, when I was scaling my coaching company, I had no coaching systems in place and it was such a mess. That coach was my first coaching hire and he hated me. And ultimately he quit in 3 months, right? And fair play to him. Like, he was thrown in the deep end. He had to build systems. He had no training or experience building systems. And basically he just didn't have a great experience. And then I had to hire again, right? But when I hired again after this guy quit, who I'm not going to name, I had a coaching playbook in place. So the new coach that came in, he followed a playbook and he stayed with me and he still works with me to this day, a year and a half later. And he's gone from coach to then he helped with reputation management and he also did marketing work in my company, all because he joined a proven system. So you need to have systems, you need to have standard operating procedures before you bring anyone into your business, especially if you're making 10 to 20K per month, because you're not going to afford the talent that will build systems for you. So I know I've said the word system and I've also said the word SOP, and you're probably wondering what the hell is this thing SOP, Farhoon? SOP is just a standard operating procedure and it's a fancy way of saying what's the step-by-step process to achieve a certain outcome. It's just a document and it has very clear action steps to achieve a certain outcome. So for example, right now we onboard people into the UK Job Institute, which is a $79 per month community. And then we have an onboarding document which very clearly states that when people join the UK Job Institute, in the first 24 hours, they need to receive a message from school, they need to receive an email, and then in the next 48 hours after that, they get a follow-up message, right? And it's a very simple SOP. It's a one-pager. But when we hired an operations manager, they could very clearly see that and then they executed that instead of having to figure out what the delivery and onboarding steps are, right? It's not that complicated. It's just everything you have in your brain. You need to just put that down on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be perfect. And just the act of putting it down will force you to think of, okay, maybe I can improve the process. Maybe this isn't efficient. It is the most valuable thing you can do in your business. And this comes before you even think of hiring. And don't get this wrong. And don't waste months and months of hiring and then people leaving you. Please don't make that mistake. I've done that and I regret it to this day. Okay, now that you understand, you need to nail your customer first. Then you nail your offer. Then you get crystal clear on the exact tasks you are going to delegate. Then you think of hiring. Now I can actually share with you the 3-part delegation and scaling system that will remove you from 90% of your business's operations. Let's start with part 1, the foundation, which is offer and ICP clarity. So as I said earlier, most entrepreneurs delegate and then can't scale because they're selling to anyone and everyone and not clear on what the offer is. And I know I'm repeating myself, but you have to get the offer dialed in for the right customer before you think of even delegating, right? And I know it's the millionth time I'm saying this, but before you go and hire anyone, get this correct, get a repeatable system of getting clients, and everything will become much easier. Think of it like this. You get extremely clear on the who, which is the customer, then the what, which is basically what you're selling, the offer, and then you get more people in to then scale your offer, right? So I hope that's clear. I've said that a million times, but that's super important, right? Part 2 of this 3-part delegating system is basically building your content system, and basically which is your lead engine, right? Assuming you've got the foundations correct, which is basically the ideal customer and offer, I'll walk you through exactly how to build a content system, right? And the reason why I say you should build a content system first before even delegating and hiring. Without a content system, you basically don't get leads, right? And without leads, you don't have a business, you're not making money, right? And I know this because I remember I paid over $30,000 for a coaching mastermind with Bastian Slot, who has made $10 million by the age of 25. Yes, by the age of 25, you can Google him as well. On our first one-on-one call, he said to me, Farhoon, marketing is your most important part of the business. Make sure you systemize it and you get it completely dialed in before you think of hiring and delegating anything, right? And that's what I obsessed over. And that's why right now, consistently, we get around 1 million views per week. This isn't just vanity views. We consistently are maintaining the UK Job Institute, the community I run right now, at over 60K MRR for the past 8 months. And basically, That's what you need to do. You need to systemize your marketing, right? And there's many, many ways to market. There's free content, there's paid ads, there's cold outreach, there's warm outreach. The way I've done it has been purely through free content. I've not paid a single penny in ads ever. And I've basically generated over 1.5 million purely online through free content on LinkedIn and Instagram. And before I even talk about how I built a content system and then delegated it to people I hired, let me actually just bust a big myth as well with content, right? A lot of you guys who I've spoken to, online coaches and agency owners, really believe that they need to get millions of views to get enough leads to make money online, right? And that is so far from the truth. I can actually tell you a very interesting story. So I have an Instagram following. I have 73,000 followers on Instagram. I have 84,000 roughly on LinkedIn. And I have one video on Instagram that got close to 14 million views. And it's my best performing video, right? On the face of it, it's a great video, went viral, got tens of thousands of comments. And I had basically sales guys in my DMs selling the community. And they were complaining for a week. Because a week after that Instagram reel went viral, we got unqualified leads. Like, we sell to people in the UK, right? And we're getting leads from South Africa, from Eastern Europe, from Southeast Asia. And it just goes to show that like a viral video or viral piece of content does not guarantee you leads, right? So honestly, the last thing you should do if you're trying to build a content system is chase views, right? The only metric that you should care about is sales and revenue. That is it. You can get a video that gets 200 views and then get you a 10K client. Honestly, views don't even matter. So I hope that kind of makes sense in terms of the content system. By the way, this reel was posted this year as well in April. April month, we didn't even grow that much. I was probably because of that reel, which completely destroyed our lead gen. Going viral can also be bad, and we've seen that. Right? So I hope that's clear. Now, if you yourself haven't figured out a system that can consistently and predictably get you qualified leads, you should not even think of hiring and delegating, because you don't really have a consistent business, right? You first, as the founder and CEO, need to figure out how to consistently get high quality leads. That is your job. It is not your job to run the system. It is your job to build the system. Two different things, right? Once you have built that system up, then you can hire people to run that system to get you leads consistently. But if you hire before you have a predictable system to get you leads, I promise you, and I say this from experience, you'll be setting yourself up for failure. And I did that, as I mentioned, 2 years ago when I was working with the co-founder. We hired interns and they couldn't figure out how to get leads and how to close clients just because we didn't build the system ourselves, right? And the underlying problem to that was we didn't have a clear offer and clear ICP. But assuming you have everything nailed down, the offer, the customer, and you're just not getting leads, you need to solve the marketing problem first. Once you've solved the marketing problem, then you are in the position to hire and delegate. So I hope that's clear. So assuming you don't have a predictable system of getting leads through the door, through content consistently, let me just walk you through my system, right? So as you know, views don't matter. I have 2 platforms I market on, LinkedIn and Instagram. The current business is the UK Job Institute. It's a $79 per month community. And we basically get 1 million views per week across Instagram and LinkedIn, right? Every post we make is targeting international students in the UK. We're looking for graduate jobs. We're very, very clear on that. We also do little things where we put the UK flag in the hooks. We also put the UK hashtags just so that we can filter out people who aren't in the UK and who aren't international students, right? And basically the way I've actually done it is I first built a content creation process for LinkedIn and then I delegated that. Then I built a content creation process for Instagram. Then since I really hated creating videos, as soon as I built the process, I delegated that to my younger brother, who then ran it for a year. He scaled me from 0 to 50K followers. And basically what I did was I just figured out what exact hooks, what exact freebies, so lead magnets attracted my ICP, and I just documented all of that on a spreadsheet. It's that simple, right? And if you're wondering, Farhoon, how do I actually do that? Well, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Chances are you have big players in your market. You have competitors, right? You can look at their best performing content, their best performing hooks, and just tweak them a bit and create your own versions. And then they will become your best performing hooks and best performing content. And then your person you hire can just come in and repurpose those reels and those LinkedIn posts and those emails and just get you more leads. It's that simple. You don't need a million different hooks to consistently get leads. With my marketing, it's only like the top, 15, 20 hooks that produce most of the results, right? 80-20 rule, right? So it's not really that complex, and it's literally just looking at what's working with your competitors, doing your own version, copying that ruthlessly at the start, and then over time you'll develop your own style. Okay, so now if you're wondering how I built a content creation process for LinkedIn, let's jump into my computer right now and I'll show you the exact onboarding plan I built for the marketing manager I've hired recently, and I've just recently delegated LinkedIn to her, literally today, and I'll walk you through the onboarding plan I built for her. So let's dive straight in. It's called Live by LinkedIn Onboarding because Live by is my marketing manager, and then LinkedIn, and then onboarding, right? So I started with the top of the funnel, right? So I started with the fundamentals. So I just like to break stuff down into its first principles. So for LinkedIn, basically I told her that 80% of her time needs to be spent on these 2 things. And these 2 things are the hook, which is the first line, and then the visual. Then I showed her exactly how to find hooks. We use this tool, Say What. We also have a hooks vault here that we bought $30-$40 to buy all the best performing hooks. I basically gave her a link to my LinkedIn posts, and then she can use pre-validated hooks, which are basically proven hooks to generate leads, right? So then I gave her a strategy on how to find images. There's literally examples of proven images that have proven to get leads. Then I broke down the types of LinkedIn posts with examples of top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel. Then I gave her the content plan, like exactly if you click on this, like we literally have a very strict cadence in my company where on Mondays we do top of funnel, on Tuesdays we do testimonials, on Wednesdays we do carousels, Thursdays we do lead magnets, which is purely to get leads, Fridays testimonial again, then carousel and value. And one thing I want to share here, which is really important, is proof is really important. As you know, if you're running any agency or online coaching business, you need a lot of proof, right? So we do at least 2 testimonials a week on LinkedIn, right? And this is like fixed. Every week we do 2 testimonials, and there will be repeats, but it's really important. Remember, Hermodzi says people need to be reminded more than they're taught, right? So just reminding them of the proof of why my system of getting them jobs works, right? So that's how I delegated this to her. And this was so clean. Like literally, I can actually go into my Slack and show you that she says no questions. It was very, very clear. Let me go into my Slack in a second. Cool. So as you can see, I gave her this. She says, extreme, comprehensive, no questions. More will come when I actually start doing. So I jumped on a call with her today and she asked me questions, but to be honest, they were very like advanced questions on, okay, how many characters should the hook be? What's the best performing hook? But like I basically covered most of the stuff she needed basically on this document, right? So the key thing you want to do is you don't want to rely on meetings or rely on unscalable and unrepeatable processes to train people up. Everything you train people up on needs to be documented. It needs to be written down. And that's what I've done, right? And she just went through all of this and she already knew what the most important bits of a LinkedIn post are. She knew the tools. She also saw like proven images, and she also saw the types of different LinkedIn posts. Then she saw the content plan as well, more resources on hooks, vaults for photos, like a LinkedIn post draft document as well. We also gave her a step-by-step plan here on like starting with the type of post, the hook, the image, and then using a custom GPT to actually write the body. And we also gave her next steps, right? So the key thing is everything you're doing right now to create content, get leads is pretty much a system. The difference between you who stuck at 10K a month and me is your system is in your head, which is why your business is limited to your head, versus my systems are all documented. They're on Google Docs, they're on Notion, they're on Google Sheets. And basically that's how I've built a team that runs 90% of the work done in my company. And now I've delegated LinkedIn. So I basically have no tasks. It's because of SOPs and systems and documented processes, right? So that's the real hack. It's just a lot of work, a lot of documentation. It's the boring stuff that's unsexy that you don't want to do. And the stuff that you don't want to do is costing you money. That's the truth. And I basically gave her everything here. And along the way, as we figure stuff out and we build new processes, we will build all of them, include them. And we have a full like marketing SOPs doc here as well. As you can see here, we've broken down like all the SOPs by like Instagram and then LinkedIn. And it's like super boring, unsexy corporate stuff, but it needs to be done, right? So if you apply this kind of structure and operational know-how to a business that's built on social media, you can systemize it and you can make millions of dollars. So hope this helps. By the way, if you're a coach, agency owner, or solo founder making 10 to 20K per month and you're struggling with inconsistent leads whilst doing all the work yourself, I'm actually launching a program that installs this exact system into your business over the next 180 days. And this includes the offer clarity, content system, and delegation framework so you can scale to 100K months whilst removing yourself from 90% of your business's operations. So if you're interested, click the first link in the description below and you can join the waitlist. And as soon as the program is live in the next few weeks, I will let you know. And you can actually get in on less than full price just for being a supporter of the channel. As you know, this is my first video. And out of full transparency, you must be making at least $5,000 per month consistently for the past 3 months to work with my team. And to be transparent as well, the program will be expensive and it's probably going to be a 5-figure USD investment. So if that fits your budget and hitting 100K months consistently without burning out is your priority, fill out the form and we should be in touch. Okay. Now that you've built your system for content creation that attract your ideal customer predictably and consistently, let's talk about how to delegate other processes in your business around operations and sales and pretty much every other department so you can remove yourself from 80% of business operations, right? So the way I delegate in my business is I have a master SOP doc for every department. In my company, there's basically 3 departments. I've really simplified it. There's marketing, which is getting leads. There's sales, which is closing the leads. And there's operations, which is delivering the promise that you made to those leads. That's how simple it is, right? So I have one master SOP doc for marketing. I have one master SOP doc for sales, and I have one master SOP doc for operations, right? So let's actually dive straight into my computer where I'll show you my marketing SOP master doc, and I'll basically just show you how I've broken down the SOPs and how simple it is and easy it is to follow. So let's dive straight in. Marketing is broken down in my company between, we have Instagram and then we have LinkedIn. Within Instagram, we have Instagram Reels, and then we have a content plan, and then we have Instagram Stories. And then for the stories and for the Reels, we have scripts, right? So basically, we've broken it down by Instagram Reels, Instagram Stories, and then we have ManyChat, which is basically the automations that send the freebies and generate leads, right? So we've broken down every constituent bit of Instagram on the marketing SOPs spreadsheet, right? And then for LinkedIn, right? We have a LinkedIn marketing SOP. We have a delegation plan. This is for anyone new that joins. Then we have a content plan. We also have marketing assets. And think of this as the one-stop shop for every marketing SOP. It is on the spreadsheet. And you want a spreadsheet like this, and if you guys are interested in the template, just comment down below and I'll send you my template. You can just copy it for your own business. You want templates like this for every department in your business. And if you're wondering, like what does this actually look like? Let me just click on like this Reels SOP, right? It is so simple. Like the training I gave my Instagram manager was that a 6-year-old should be able to click on an SOP and follow it without much effort, right? It needs to be super simple. Like we give like super like granular, simple action steps on everything, like crafting a thumbnail, assembling a reel, writing a caption, enabling a many chat automation with screenshots and everything, right? So that's what you want to do. It's nothing fancy, no fancy colors. It's just very step by step. And this way, like it just removes, like the mindset is that you need to remove the need for your employees to think in your business. It needs to be all documented. This is a really good video, by the way. It's gonna really bang. I know it. It's gonna bang. Okay, now that you are very clear on which tasks you want to delegate, and then also you've documented those tasks really well on Google Docs, and you have master SOP sheets on Google Sheets like I just showed you, now you are in a position to hire. And a lot of agency owners and online coaches, I see they really struggle with hiring, right? Because they're not sure if they should hire for skills or a friend or hire a referral. I just like breaking it down by 2 ways, right? There's skills, right? And then there's attitude, right? In my company, the philosophy is to always hire for attitude first and skills. And that's pretty much what it is. And Elon Musk says this all the time, that there's nothing worse than a competent asshole. And he said in so many interviews that he really regrets hiring for talent and not hiring for personality, right? My fundamental belief is that you can basically teach pretty much any skill, right? If they have the right attitude. On the other hand, you can hire people who are the most talented, but they don't have the right attitude. They're never going to grow. They're going to be capped at their level, right? And ultimately, you want to see and hire people based on their trajectory and how much you can grow with them instead of trying to get someone who's perfect, because no one's going to be perfect. Everyone has flaws. You need to make sure you help them become better at their strengths, and kind of whatever their flaws are, you just give those tasks to someone else, right? So super important you hire for. It's taken me a lot of time and money and energy to learn. And please learn from my mistakes. Do not hire for talent, hire for attitude. Really, really important, right? That's super duper important. If I look at my business right now, we've generated 7 figures online at the age of 26. And my most valuable hire last year was my best friend. And yes, they do say the conventional wisdom is not to hire best friends. And I would say that in most cases, it doesn't work out. In some cases, it does, right? And if you're very clear on boundaries between friendship and work, it can work out, right? And he was and still is my most valuable hire because he did everything from coaching to administrative work, operational work, reputation management, marketing, building SOPs. And when he joined, he knew nothing, absolutely nothing. The only thing he had was he had the right attitude to learn, and he quit his job. He basically got fired from his job in Canada, and he flew over to London with a suitcase, and he figured everything out from scratch. And I believed in him, and he believed in himself. And he basically scaled my Instagram from 50 to 73K, which doesn't sound like a lot, but he's now built the Instagram Reel system right now that is generating us multiple 5 figures, anywhere from 20 to 40K per month through one platform. I just asked him to do it, and that's after he left to start his own business, right? And he did that after on the side. Like, that's how good he became. That just goes to show that with the right people, they will still support you even if they leave. The trade-off you will have with great talent with the right attitude is the right attitude takes even like a Dumbo to the best places, right? I'm not that intelligent, but I've had always the best attitude in the room, and I've been in rooms that are way ahead of me, right? With people who are much ahead of me, just because I had the right attitude. So people with the right attitude will eventually move on in a year, 2 years, 3 years, right? And your goal is to have such a good relationship with them that they support you even after they leave. And that's the whole premise of my business, where even if people leave, we end the work on great terms, right? So super important you hire for attitude and not skills. So I hope that's really clear. And especially if you're making your first, second, third hire, maybe if you're making 10th, 20th hire, you can maybe like hire someone based on talent, because if you have a team of 20 people and you hire one person, they're 5% of the business, right? If it's your first employee, that's basically 50% of your business. The person with the wrong attitude is going to impact 50% of your organization's culture, right? So it's really important, especially with your first 10 employees, you hire only for attitude. And it might mean that it might take longer, but they will stick with you for longer and they won't poison your culture. And remember, culture will eat strategy for breakfast every day. If you have the right culture in your business, you will always succeed. If you have the wrong culture and the wrong people, you are a ticking time bomb. And I say that from experience. So now that you're clear on hiring for attitude and not for skills, and you're probably going to make your first, second, or third hire, the next thing to understand is not to make the mistake of hiring anyone and everyone with a pulse. The key with hiring A players is understanding hiring is like sales. You need a lot of leads at the top of the funnel. The real way you're going to find someone who's as close to an A player at the start is by getting a lot of applications. When I hired for my first employee, who basically she did everything, and I should have probably had SOPs and stuff back then, but I basically, you could say I got lucky or whatever, and she built systems, right? But after that, I really struggled to hire people like that. So key thing is to create a job description that sells the vision of the company. It needs to be a compelling job description. It's basically like your VSL, your sales video. And then you don't just create a job description and post it in one place and hope to get applications. When I make a job description, I post that same job description on like 10 websites. Indeed, LinkedIn, Work in Startups, all the ones in the UK ad. I try to test it. I also would send it in WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups where like my ICP or like my ideal employee hangs. If you're not getting at least 50 applications for a job, you're never going to make a good hire ever, because you're not going to have enough data to look at what's good and what's bad, right? So really important, you don't just get like 2 applications and you hire one of them. That's what most of you guys do. You get a few applications, you just hire them, and then you waste 3-6 months of your time, and you waste money, and you waste so much energy, right? So really important, you get loads of applications. If you're not getting applications, you need to go back to the drawing board. You need to make sure your job description is compelling enough. Super important, right? So now you have a clear offer. You have a clear customer. You have, exactly what to delegate. And now also you have hired an A player or someone who's really good. Now, how do you maintain 60% profit margins through, delegating and paying all of these salaries, right? My philosophy of hiring on attitude over skills is basically there's a benefit to that. And the benefit to that is that you can hire people who aren't that expensive and build them up and get a good deal out of them. That's how you can basically keep your margins up. That's one way, because you don't have to pay market rates. Another way also is that when you obviously train people up from scratch, you can set very, very clear KPIs. And when you're building these KPIs, you need to work out the numbers where you're giving people targets that help you achieve your profit goals. And they need to be realistic. What I've done in my business is my sales manager is commissions only. And he only gets super high commissions if his sales team that he manages hits their KPIs. And ultimately, the sales team's KPIs are linked to my profits. So the sales team hits their KPIs, the sales manager hits their KPIs, and if all of them hit their KPIs, I hit my profit. And it sounds very complex, and you probably don't want to get into that now, but ultimately, I give you like how I came to this. I was really struggling. So 3 months ago, I moved from London to Dubai, and I was really struggling with getting my sales team to hit their targets, right? And then I met this guy. This guy was a consultant. He was making 6 figures USD, living right across the Burj, so the tall building you see in Dubai. And I was like, how the hell? Like, obviously, I'm an entrepreneur, so I can make my own money. I can have higher profits. But this guy was making decent money in a job. I asked him, like, how do you afford to live here? He's like, yeah, I have this consulting job. It pays me well, but I also have this business on the side. I was like, interesting. You're a consultant and you have a business on the side. What's the secret? Then he told me that, like, oh yeah, I have very good incentives with my operations manager. I was like, interesting. So you're not chasing him every day. You're not having calls every day. I was like, no, we catch up once every 2 weeks, and he just gives me a report, and we tweak little things based on, we just discuss stuff. I was like, very interesting. And he says, yeah, he learned this from the Arabs. And what the Arabs do really well is they don't really work hard. No disrespect, they're really smart people. They have understood the power of delegation and incentives. He's given really strict KPIs to his operations manager, and they agreed on them. And they also agreed that if he doesn't hit the KPIs, he loses his job. So that's what you want to do. You obviously want to have a great content marketing system. You want to have a great offer, clear customer. And then when you hire people, you need to give them KPIs, like targets that help you hit your profit goals. And you can literally like use ChatGPT to build them. You can hire an accountant. But that's really the secret. Like, you need to have very strict KPIs. On top of that, what you also need is accountability systems. So I get my sales manager to send end of day reports, end of week reports. That's for the sales side. And then for the marketing side, what I do is I get the marketing lead right now, who I just hired roughly 3 weeks ago. She has catch-ups with my Instagram expert, and now she's having catch-ups with me, where we're looking at the progress of marketing basically daily. Now we're going to be looking at daily progress. And that's pretty much what it is. If you have strict targets and you agree on those targets together, like, okay, cool, this is the targets we want to hit, and this is what we can afford in terms of like not hitting the targets. Are we aligned on this, right? Just by setting those targets, you are ahead of 90% of other entrepreneurs, because most entrepreneurs, they don't even set targets for themselves. So that's super important. And then setting targets and keeping them accountable. And that's how you keep margins high. And listen, you don't need a 60% profit margin business. You can have a 30% profit margin business and give more to your team, but then work like less than a few hours a week, right? It really depends on what you're looking for. But I generally believe that you can get both high margins and work less by really having set KPIs that are achievable, and you keep them accountable to it. That's really the secret. Now that you are clear on everything you need to do to hit those 60% profit margins and delegate pretty much everything in your business, now let me give you a 30-day roadmap to getting started. The first step actually is to get clarity on, are you actually selling the right offer to the right customer at the right price point, right? And there's loads of ways to do this, but the most simplest way that I found, and it's what Hormozi recommends as well, is, are your happiest customers sending you referrals? Because not everyone's going to give you a referral. But if your happiest customers are not sending you referrals, then you don't have the right offer to the right customer at the right price. And if you're wondering, but Farhoon, how do I basically get referrals, right? Well, you need to look at your competitors. And what I would do is I'd look at my competitors and I'd look at what are their best customers saying in testimonials? What are those exact words they're saying? What did they like about the program? What helped them with the transformation? And then you want to target those exact people in your marketing, because then those people will get the results and then they will refer you to their friends. So that's pretty much what it is. But I've seen most coaches, you guys do get referrals from your best clients. So assuming you're getting loads of referrals, it's very simple. You need to look at what common theme they have in terms of their demographics. When I was scaling my career coaching offer last year, I saw my best students had one thing in common. They all had great UK experience, whether it was internships or part-time jobs. And just having that UK experience improved their English, improved their understanding of British culture. And basically we doubled down on marketing to people who had experience, right? And we even went the extra mile and gave them scholarships and gave them lower prices to join our program, because we knew even if we made less profits on the front end, they would get results and then we make more profits in the long run because they'd send referrals. And obviously referrals are much easier sales as well. So that's what you need to do. If you're not getting referrals at all, there's something seriously wrong about your business and your offer, and you need to fix it ASAP. That's week 1 to 2. Week 3 to 4 of your 30-day roadmap to get started is, now that you've identified your best clients, now you have to attract them. And you need to understand that like a certain type of client will have some commonalities, right? So as I said, some of my best students as well who had some experience, they would struggle to pass interviews. So they get interviews because they had experience, but they would struggle to pass interviews. So what I did was I spent a lot of my effort creating content for this very sub niche of already like a small niche in the market, right? And I created a 40-minute video interview prep strategy guide. I created interview prep cheat sheets. I created interview prep carousels, and I posted them everywhere, LinkedIn, Instagram. And that's how I started attracting more international students who were good enough to get interviews, and then who were consistently getting interviews, and they just needed a bit of support with interviews, and then they got jobs, right? It's not really complicating it, right? Just look at what are your best clients struggling with the most, because there's going to be more people who are like them, and then create solutions in terms of videos, in terms of cheat sheets, in terms of guides. If you're like, I don't know, weight loss coach, and you can literally just create like fat loss guides or six-pack guides for people who are busy professionals. I don't know what your best customers are, right? But you get the point, right? So what I actually did was I created 2 types of content once I knew who my best clients were. I created educational content which solved their biggest pain. So their biggest pain in my case was not passing interviews. And then second, what I did was I documented and I created content on client wins. So what I've seen is client wins are basically testimonials. Testimonials are very powerful. And especially if you're selling a high ticket product, which is over $2,000, you need a lot of testimonials. We actually analyzed over 500 days of sales data a few months ago, and we saw the top 10% of days, pretty much all of them had one thing in common, and they had a testimonial post, a post where we shared a story of a successful student that went through my program. And I've also had like a very different strategy to testimonials. And my strategy has basically been, I always merge proof, which is a testimonial, with education, right? So if you look at my LinkedIn right now, you read all the LinkedIn posts with pictures of clients or students, we call them students. Like for example, one is Shruti got 6 jobs in 6 weeks. Basically, I write a story of the student who got the desired outcome, which is a 30K plus UK job in less than 90 days. And I just document how they did it. This way, people who are reading it, they're learning what steps they took. So they're getting the education, but also there's proof there as well. And it's so powerful where you merge education with proof. There's so many like people on YouTube who are sharing how my client went from 10K to 20K, 10K to 50K per month, and they just document the steps they took. So super duper important. And I promise you, if you make one high quality post per day, just on educational content that solves your best client's biggest pain, or on wins and testimonials, I promise you, you will not run out of leads. If you just do that consistently for 30 days, that's pretty much it. So I know I've said a lot. To recap, do not delegate before you have a clear offer and you're clear on your ideal customer. Once you're clear on your offer and your ideal customer, before you hire, make sure you're very clear on exactly what tasks you're hiring for. Then, once you now know what tasks you're hiring for, despite what the biggest burning problem in your business is, I always recommend starting with the marketing hire, because I always think leads will solve any problem in your business. More leads get you more money can help you hire more people, right? And when it comes to hiring, let's say you want to hire someone for marketing, or let's say you don't want to listen to me and you want to hire for operations. When it comes to hiring, hire for attitude first. Skills can be taught, and make sure you treat hiring like a funnel. You need to get a lot of leads, a lot of applications before you even think of making a hire, so that you can make a judgment out of abundance and not be desperate, right? And hire the first person who has a pulse. That's pretty much what it is. And now once you have this person in, you need to set targets for them, or KPIs as they call it in corporate lingo, and create accountability systems such as daily and weekly reports to make sure your team hits their target. And that's exactly how I've kept my margins to over 60%. That's pretty much it. The difference between entrepreneurs, online coaches, agency owners who are stuck at 10 to 20K per month doing everything themselves, and those scaling to 100K plus months with 60% margins whilst not burning out and working under 20 hours per week, is having the complete foundation, a dialed in offer, a content system that consistently gets leads, and an operational system that runs without you. Most people try to skip the delegation. You're going to skip the delegation and end up more overwhelmed than you started. If you want help implementing this exact 3-part system in your business so you can remove yourself from 90% of your business's operations and then scale to 100K months like myself, click the first link in the description and join the waitlist to join my 180-day program, where you'll basically get fractional access to my team who's running an existing business that's doing tens of thousands of dollars every month. So if you found this valuable, subscribe for more value, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.